She walked the same street every morning on her way to work. The road was always busy with cars and people, but there was one place on that street that never changed. Near the small bakery on the corner, a quiet homeless man sat on the sidewalk. His name was Adam. He had a thin blanket around his shoulders and a cardboard sign resting near his feet. The sign simply said that he needed help. She noticed him the first week she started her new job. At first, she only glanced at him while walking by. She did not know anything about him, but something about the way he sat so quietly made her slow down. He never asked people for money. He never spoke loudly. He just waited. His silence felt different from others she had seen on the streets. One morning, without really planning it, she stopped for the first time. She opened her small purse and pulled out some coins. It was not a lot, just loose change she had left from buying breakfast. When she placed it into the paper cup near him, he lifted his head slightly. He did not smile, but his eyes softened. He whispered a quiet thank you. It was so soft that she almost did not hear it, but it felt real. After that day, stopping to give him a little money became a small part of her morning routine. She did not think much about it at first. She simply walked, reached into her pocket, dropped the change, and continued on her way. But over the days and weeks, she found herself slowing down more, noticing small things about him that she had not seen before. She noticed the way he always folded his blanket perfectly beside him, even though it was old and torn. She noticed he kept his area clean, sweeping away crumbs or small pieces of trash with the side of his hand. Sometimes he rubbed his arms as if he was cold, even when the weather was warm. He rarely looked up at anyone, and when he did, his eyes showed a kind of tiredness that made her heart feel heavy. He never asked her for anything. He never called out to her or tried to stop her. Every morning he simply nodded slightly as she approached, and she always nodded back. It became something familiar, something steady, something that made her feel like she was doing at least one small good thing in the world. Some mornings she wondered about him. She wondered how he ended up living on the street corner. She wondered if he had family somewhere. She wondered if he used to have a job or a home. But she never asked. She always told herself that it was not her place. People had private lives, private stories, and private pain. She did not want to make him uncomfortable by asking too much. Still, she could not ignore the feeling that he was different from other people she had seen in similar situations. There was something quiet and gentle about him. Something that made her feel safe even though she barely knew him. She felt a strange mix of curiosity and worry for him, even though they had never truly spoken. On some days, when she had a little more money, she bought an extra pastry from the bakery. She would place it near him instead of coins. He always gave the same soft thank you, but she noticed his hands shook a little when he picked the pastry up. She did not know if it was because he was hungry or because he was overwhelmed. The bakery workers seemed to know him too. She often saw one of them quietly placing day-old bread near him before opening the shop. Adam always accepted it with a small nod. He never caused trouble. He never bothered anyone. He simply existed there, like part of the street itself. Every morning, the same thing happened. She walked toward him, he lifted his head slightly, she dropped her change or food, and he whispered thank you. It was simple, but somehow it made her feel connected to him. Not in a close or personal way, but in a small human way. Some mornings she felt tired, stressed, or upset about her work. But when she saw Adam, something inside her softened. She reminded herself that whatever problems she had, she still had a home, a job, and people to talk to. Adam had nothing but a blanket, a sign, and quiet eyes that carried too many stories. Other people passed by him without looking. Some walked around him quickly, as if afraid of getting too close. Some pretended they did not see him at all. She did not blame them. Everyone had their own lives and their own worries. But still, she wished they could see what she saw, a man who was trying to survive with as much dignity as he could. Her routine felt small, but it mattered to her. It made her mornings feel more meaningful. She never expected anything in return. She never expected him to speak more than a thank you. She certainly never expected her simple act of kindness to become the start of something deeper. At that time, she had no idea that her quiet morning habit would soon turn into a life-changing moment. She had no idea that the man she had helped with loose change would one day reach out to her, stop her, and change the way she saw the world. For now, she only saw him as part of her morning. A silent man with gentle eyes. A person she helped without knowing why. A routine that made her feel connected to something bigger, even if she did not yet understand where that connection would lead. She continued her morning routine, walking the same path each day, passing the same bakery, and seeing Adam sitting in his usual place. Over time, she grew more familiar with the small details of his presence. She noticed things not because she meant to, but because her eyes naturally drifted to him the moment she turned the corner. It was as if her mind had quietly made him part of her daily awareness. His posture was always the same, with his back leaned slightly against the wall and his blanket wrapped around him. But the more she observed him, the more she realized how careful he was with everything he owned. His blanket, though worn and thin, was always folded the same way. The cardboard sign was never thrown on the ground or left messy, it rested neatly near his knee. Even the little paper cup, which held whatever change people offered, was always placed at the same angle. Some days she would arrive a little earlier or a little later, depending on how long she took to get ready. But no matter the time, Adam was always there. She wondered sometimes if he slept near that spot or if he traveled from somewhere else each morning. She never saw him arrive, and she never saw him leave. It almost felt like he appeared only during the hours she walked by, though she knew that wasn't possible. She started to look at people passing around him. Many walked by without slowing down. Some were too busy, their phones in their hands and their minds somewhere else. Others looked uncomfortable and turned their heads away quickly. A few people dropped coins into his cup, but very few stopped or acknowledged him. It made her feel strange, not angry, but a little sad for him. She wondered how long a person could go without hearing a friendly voice or seeing a warm smile. Even from a distance, she could sense that Adam was not the kind of man who wanted to bother anyone. He kept his hands close to himself and never reached out to people. His eyes stayed low, and he rarely shifted his body unless he needed to adjust his blanket. She noticed he did not shake his cup or call out to people like some others did. He simply waited, and that quiet waiting made her feel something she couldn't explain. One cold morning, she brought hot coffee for herself and an extra cup for him. She hesitated for a moment before handing it to him, unsure if he would accept it. When she offered it, he looked surprised, as though no one had ever done that for him before. He took it gently, with both hands, and whispered thank you in the same soft voice she had grown used to hearing. She noticed the way his fingers wrapped around the cup, holding on to the warmth as if it was something precious. After that, she found herself thinking about him even after she reached her workplace. She wondered if he was warm enough, if he had eaten anything, or if he had anyone to talk to. She never meant to get attached in any way, but thinking about him became natural, almost automatic. Sometimes she told herself that she should stop worrying so much. He was a stranger, someone she barely knew. But another part of her felt like ignoring him would be the wrong thing to do. One afternoon, on her way home, she walked past the corner again just to see if he was still there. She did not usually go that direction at that hour, but something pulled her toward it. She found him sitting in the same spot, even though the sun was starting to set. The street was quieter, and fewer people walked by. He looked tired, more tired than she had ever seen him. His shoulders slumped forward, and he kept rubbing his hands together, trying to warm them. She wanted to say something, even just a simple hello, but the words stayed stuck in her throat. She feared she might intrude or make him uncomfortable. So she simply walked by, but the image of him sitting there in the cold stayed with her for the rest of the evening. She remembered the shape of his hands, the slow way he breathed, and the quiet stillness around him. It all stayed in her mind like a picture she couldn't erase. The next morning, she woke up earlier than usual. She didn't plan it. She just couldn't sleep well. She kept thinking about the way he looked the evening before. She made coffee, grabbed her things, and left home earlier than she needed to. As she reached the bakery corner, she felt a small rush of relief when she saw him sitting there again. Somehow, knowing he was safe made her feel lighter. This time, when she approached him, she didn't just drop the coins into the cup. She paused for a moment. Adam looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time. It wasn't a long look, but it was enough to show that he recognized her too. In that small moment, something changed. She didn't know what it was, but she felt it, something quiet, something human, something that connected them for the first time. She walked away feeling different, as if the simple routine she had built was slowly turning into something much more meaningful. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew this was no longer just a habit. It was becoming a part of her life, one she didn't want to ignore. The morning started like any other. She walked down the familiar street, holding her bag close as the cool air touched her face. The sky was pale, and the sun had not fully risen yet. She could already smell the warm bread from the bakery, and she felt the quiet comfort of her usual routine. As she turned the corner, she saw Adam sitting in his usual place. At first, everything looked normal. His blanket was wrapped around him, his sign rested against his knee, and his cup sat in front of him. But as she walked closer, she felt something different. She couldn't explain it, but the air around him felt heavier, like something was wrong. She slowed down without meaning to. Her steps became softer as she approached him. Usually he sat still, barely moving except to nod. But today his hands were restless. He rubbed them together over and over, as if he was trying to warm them, even though the morning wasn't very cold. His shoulders shook slightly, and he kept looking down at the ground, not in his usual quiet way but in a troubled way. She reached into her pocket for the coins she had prepared. She expected him to lift his head a little, the same small motion he always made. But instead, he stayed still, staring down at the sidewalk as if lost in his thoughts. She knelt slightly so she could place the money carefully in his cup. She did not want to startle him. But the moment her hand moved forward, Adam suddenly lifted his head. His eyes looked different, wider, tense, almost afraid. Before she could stand up fully, his hand reached out and grabbed her arm. She froze. Her heart jumped so fast she could hear it in her ears. Adam had never touched her before, not even accidentally. He had always kept his distance, always stayed respectful and quiet. The sudden grip made her breath stop for a moment. She did not know if she should pull away or wait. His hand was cold and shaking. She felt his fingers tighten slightly, not enough to hurt her, but enough to show he was desperate. She looked at him, trying to understand what was happening. Adam opened his mouth as if trying to speak, but no sound came out at first. His breathing was uneven, and he kept glancing around as if he was afraid someone might be watching. She stood still, unsure of what to do. Part of her felt scared, but another part of her felt concerned. His eyes did not look angry or threatening. They looked frightened, tired, and full of something she couldn't yet understand. Finally, he whispered her name. She didn't know how he knew it. Maybe he had heard someone at the bakery call her before. His voice trembled as he said it, and she felt goosebumps rise along her arms. Hearing her name made her feel like whatever he was about to say wasn't small. It mattered. "Please," he whispered, still holding her arm. His voice cracked like it had been silent for too long. I need to tell you something." She looked around quickly. People were walking past, but no one was paying attention to them. It was just the two of them in that small moment. She swallowed, unsure if she should kneel down to talk or try to pull her arm away gently. The fear she felt wasn't because she thought he would hurt her. It was the fear of the unknown, of what he might say, of why he suddenly needed her. His grip loosened a little as he noticed her fear. He shook his head softly, almost apologizing with the small movement. He slid his hand back but didn't pull away completely. It was as if he needed the connection but also didn't want to frighten her. "I'm sorry," he said, barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to scare you. I can't stay quiet anymore." She felt her breath return slowly. She could see something in his eyes now, pain, worry, and a deep sadness he had kept hidden for a long time. She sensed that whatever he wanted to tell her had been building inside him for days, maybe even weeks. For a moment she considered walking away. It would have been easy. She could have told herself she didn't know him well, that this wasn't her problem. But something inside her refused to move. She stayed still because she knew he wasn't reaching out to hurt her. He was reaching out because he had reached the edge of something he could no longer handle alone. The street felt quieter than usual. The noise of cars and footsteps faded in her mind as she focused on the trembling man in front of her. She could feel her heart beating fast again, but not from fear this time, from worry. From curiosity. From the sense that something important was unfolding. She nodded slightly, letting him know she wasn't going to walk away. Adam took a shaky breath. His eyes met hers fully for the first time since she had known him. They were filled with something heavy, something that was finally ready to be spoken. And in that moment, she felt it clearly, her simple morning routine had changed forever. She stood there, her arm still tingling from the moment Adam had grabbed it. Even though his hand was no longer holding her, she could still feel the cold pressure of his fingers. Something about the way he looked at her made her stay. His eyes held a mixture of fear and hope, as if he was afraid she might walk away but praying she wouldn't. Adam took a slow, shaky breath. His shoulders rose and fell unevenly, and for a moment it looked like he was trying to gather the strength to speak. She stayed silent, waiting. She did not want to interrupt him or push him. Something told her that rushing this moment would break whatever fragile courage he was holding on to. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low and unsure, like someone who had forgotten how to form words. "I'm sorry for touching you like that," he said. His eyes dropped again, almost ashamed. "I didn't want to frighten you. I didn't know how else to stop you." She nodded gently, letting him know she wasn't angry. Her heart still beat fast, but her fear softened as she watched him struggle to express himself. If he had wanted to hurt her, he would have. But he hadn't. His desperation was different. It felt like a plea, not a threat. He took another breath and looked up again. This time his eyes were watery, as if he was fighting back something he had kept locked away for years. "I need help," he whispered. "Real help." She tilted her head slightly, unsure of what he meant. He had never asked her for anything other than accepting what she gave him. He never begged. Never reached out to her. This was the first time he had ever shown anything beyond quiet gratitude. He rubbed his hands together again, a nervous habit she had noticed before. "I know you don't know me," he said. "And you don't owe me anything. But I don't have anyone else to talk to. No one else even looks at me, except you." The words hit her harder than she expected. She looked around, noticing how people walked past without seeing him. She had always seen him every morning, in the same place, but she had never thought about how invisible he must feel to everyone else. He lowered his voice, as if someone might overhear, though no one was paying attention. "I've been trying to tell someone for days," he continued. "But I get scared. I stop myself. I didn't want to burden anyone." She felt a small ache in her chest. It was strange, standing there in the middle of the sidewalk with a man she barely knew, but somehow she didn't feel distant from him. She felt the heaviness of his words like he had placed them directly into her hands. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. It was the first time she had spoken to him beyond a simple greeting. The words felt gentle coming out, as if she was afraid to break the moment. Adam swallowed hard. "Something happened," he said. "Something I've been keeping inside. Something I can't fix alone." He looked around again, his eyes darting nervously, as if someone might be listening. "And I can't go to the police. They won't believe me. No one will." She felt a small wave of confusion, but she didn't interrupt him. She could tell he was working up the courage to speak, piece by piece. "I used to have a life," he said quietly. "A job. A home. People who depended on me." His voice cracked. "But I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong people. And everything fell apart." She listened closely. She didn't know what he was about to reveal, but she felt the weight of it building with every word. He looked up again, and for the first time she saw real fear in his eyes, the kind that came from something deeper than sleeping on the streets or losing a home. "I didn't end up here by accident," he whispered. "Someone did this to me." Her breath caught. She blinked, but before she could respond, he continued. "I know how this sounds," Adam said. "But I'm not crazy. I'm not imagining things." He clenched his hands together tightly, like he was trying to keep himself steady. "I've been watched. Followed. Hurt. Not physically, but in ways that made me lose everything. I didn't know who to tell. I didn't know who would believe me. She felt a strange mix of fear and sympathy rising inside her. The things he was saying sounded frightening, almost unbelievable, but the pain in his voice was real. The trembling in his hands was real. The desperation in his eyes was real. Why me? She asked softly. It was the question she couldn't stop herself from asking. Why had he chosen her? Out of all the people who passed by him every day, why her? Adam took a slow breath. Because you're the only person who ever looked at me like I wasn't invisible, he said. You're the only one who treated me like a human being. I thought, maybe you would listen. Maybe you wouldn't walk away. Her chest tightened at his words. She didn't know what she had expected him to say, but it wasn't that. She felt her throat tighten and her eyes sting slightly. She didn't know this man, but she suddenly felt connected to him in a way she couldn't explain. He lowered his head again, his voice barely a whisper. Please, he said. Just hear me out. I don't know how much time I have before things get worse. She stood quietly, her mind racing but her feet refusing to move. She didn't know what Adam was about to tell her, but she understood one thing very clearly now: this wasn't simply a homeless man asking for help. This was someone running out of hope, someone trusting her with the last pieces of his story. And she knew she couldn't turn away. The moment Lily stepped back, the bus stop became silent again. She felt her heart beating fast, and she could still feel the light weight of Ethan's hand on hers. She looked at him, waiting for him to say more, but he seemed to be trying to calm himself before speaking again. His hands were still shaking, but he stood straighter now, as if he was trying to be strong for the first time in a long while. Lily saw how much effort it took for him to stay steady. She did not know what he was about to say, but she knew it was important. She stayed close, giving him space but also letting him know she was there. Her breath felt tight in her chest, as if she was holding it without noticing. Ethan looked around carefully, checking if anyone was watching. When he saw that the street was empty, he slowly sat back down on the bench. Lily followed and sat next to him, leaving enough space so he would not feel crowded. He rubbed his hands together nervously and took a long, deep breath. He said that the real reason he reached for her arm that morning was not only because he was scared, but because he had no one else left. The person he was hiding from was not far. He had seen the man 3 times in the last week, walking around the bus stop, pretending to look for something. Ethan had recognized him instantly. It was someone he used to know, someone who had hurt him in the past, someone who would hurt him again if he found him. Lily felt a cold wave move through her. She asked gently who the man was. Ethan hesitated, as if he was afraid the truth would change the way she saw him. Finally, he said the man was a dangerous person from his old life, someone he had once worked for before everything fell apart. He had left that life behind, but the man had not forgotten him. Ethan explained that this man blamed him for something that went wrong years ago, and now he wanted to make him pay. Lily listened quietly, letting him speak at his own pace. She could see the fear in his eyes, the fear he had been carrying alone for so long. She realized that every time she had seen him at the bus stop, he had been watching the street not out of boredom, but out of fear. He told her that he had not slept well in days. Every noise made him jump. Every shadow looked like a threat. The only time he felt a little safer was when Lily arrived in the morning. Knowing she would show up made him feel less alone, even if he never told her. Lily felt something tighten in her chest. She had never imagined he was going through something like this. She asked him why he had not gone to the police. Ethan looked down and said he was scared they would not believe him, or worse, that the man would find out and come after him faster. He also admitted he was ashamed. He did not want Lily to know that he had once lived a life full of mistakes. But Lily did not pull away. She told him gently that his past did not erase the person he was now. She reminded him of the small acts of kindness she had always seen in him, even when he thought no one was watching. Ethan looked surprised, as if he had never considered that someone could see something good in him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The morning air felt heavier, but also calmer, as if the truth had lifted something between them. Ethan said that he had reached for her because he felt the man would appear that morning. He had seen a familiar car passing by twice already, and fear had taken over him. He grabbed her arm because he did not want to lose the only safe part of his day. Lily took a slow breath and told him that he was not alone anymore. Her voice was soft but steady. She told him that she wanted to help him, even if she did not know exactly how yet. Ethan looked at her with a kind of relief that almost brought tears to his eyes. No one had said something like that to him in a long time. He asked her if she really meant it, and she nodded without hesitation. She knew this was bigger than she had expected, but she also knew she could not step away now. Ethan had trusted her with something painful and dangerous, and she felt a deep pull inside her to be there for him. Ethan whispered a quiet thank you, his voice breaking slightly. Lily placed her hand gently over his for a brief moment. She told him that they would figure out the next step together. For the first time that morning, Ethan breathed out slowly, as if he finally felt a bit lighter. But deep inside, Lily also knew that whatever was coming next would not be simple. She could feel it like a shadow waiting just beyond the corner. Still, she did not back away. She stayed beside him on that quiet street, knowing that everything was about to change. The sun was rising a little higher now, and the street slowly grew brighter, but Lily felt as if she had stepped into a different world. Everything around her looked the same bus stop, the same empty road, the same quiet morning, but nothing felt the same inside her. Ethan watched the street with worried eyes, and she could feel the tension in his body even when he tried to hide it. Lily knew that staying there forever was not an option. Something had to be done. She turned to Ethan and asked what he wanted to do next. He looked tired and unsure, as if he had been running from his past for so long that he no longer knew how to face it. He said he did not want to keep living in fear. He wanted this to stop, but he did not know how. Lily thought for a moment. She was scared too, but she knew they could not ignore the problem. She told him that going to the police might be the safest choice, even if he was afraid they would not believe him. She said that he didn't have to tell the whole story right away. They could start slowly, step by step, and she would be with him the entire time. Ethan looked at her carefully, as if trying to see if she truly meant it. He asked softly if she really wanted to be involved. He did not want to bring trouble into her life. Lily shook her head and told him that trouble had already arrived, and pretending it wasn't there would not protect either of them. She reminded him that he had faced everything alone for too long. It was time to let someone help. Ethan took a long breath, his shoulders rising and falling slowly. After a moment, he nodded. It was not a strong or confident nod, but it was real. He said he was ready to stop running. They stood up from the bench. Lily could feel how unsteady Ethan was. She gently held his arm, not because he was pulling her this time, but because she wanted to guide him forward. Together, they walked down the quiet street. Every sound made Ethan flinch, but Lily stayed beside him, matching her steps with his, reminding him that he wasn't alone anymore. When they reached a nearby cafe, Lily suggested they go inside to sit for a moment. The warm air and soft smell of coffee wrapped around them as they entered. Ethan looked out of place, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to sit somewhere so normal and peaceful. Lily smiled at him gently and guided him to a small table in the corner. He kept watching the door, but he was calmer now. Lily took out her phone and searched for the nearest police station. It wasn't far, maybe a 15-minute walk. She showed the screen to Ethan, and although he looked nervous, he nodded again. He said that if she stayed with him, he could do it. They left the cafe and began walking. Lily noticed Ethan glancing over his shoulder now and then, but each time she touched his arm lightly, as if reminding him that she was still there. The streets were starting to fill with more people now, which made him both uneasy and relieved. When they finally reached the police station, Ethan stopped at the door. His breathing grew fast again. Lily turned to him and whispered that he didn't have to be brave alone. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and stepped inside with her. The officer at the desk looked up and asked how he could help. Ethan froze, unable to speak at first. Lily placed a hand on his back, steadying him. With a shaky voice, Ethan told the officer that he needed help. Someone dangerous from his past was looking for him, and he couldn't hide anymore. The officer listened with patience. He didn't question Ethan's fear or dismiss his story. Instead, he asked him to sit and share everything he could remember. Lily sat beside him, ready to support him whenever he needed it. As Ethan spoke, Lily saw the weight he had been carrying for years finally begin to lift. It was slow, painful, and emotional, but each word brought him closer to safety. She realized then that helping him had become something deeper than the simple kindness she had started with. It had grown into something meaningful, something that connected their lives in a way she had never expected. When they walked out of the station later, Ethan looked exhausted but lighter. The officers promised to look into the matter, and they gave him information about shelters and protection services. He had a long road ahead of him, but he no longer had to walk it alone. Ethan looked at Lily with gratitude that words could not fully express. He thanked her not just for that day, but for every morning she had stopped by, every small moment of kindness that had slowly given him a reason to hope. Lily felt her eyes warm as she told him she wasn't going anywhere. Their steps were slow as they walked back toward the main street, but they walked with purpose, side by side. And for the first time in a long while, the fear that had followed Ethan like a shadow began to fade as the morning sun grew brighter around them.